One of my favorite thing about Magia Exedra is the fact that there is no equipment system with random stats like most gacha games. But this doesn't mean that there are no way to improve your characters outside of just leveling them up. Portraits are items that you equip to your characters to increase their stats. You can obtain most of them by progressing through the story, while some are obtained in time-limited events or login bonus. Each portrait increases HP, attack and defense, and has an ability. The base stats of a portrait are increased when you raise the ascension level by getting an additional copy of the portrait. The ability can be upgraded up to 5 times, but this will require magical palettes. Upgrading a portrait is a costly endeavor. The ascension level isn't a problem, but fully upgrading the ability of a 5-star portrait will cost you 350 small magical palettes, 100 medium and 20 large. You can obtain those at the events shops, as well as the PvP shop. Since upgrading portraits cost so much, we need to know which ones are worth it. My first advice is to not upgrade portrait before you reach the endgame. As you can see, all 3 of these portraits do the same thing, increasing your attack, but each one is better than the previous not only in terms of base stats but also in terms of ability. The first one was obtained in standard difficulty, the second one in battler and the third one in nightmare. Just by progressing through the game you will get better portraits, making the previous ones obsolete, so upgrading them is a waste of resources. Just focus on upgrading your units and wait for nightmare before even considering upgrading your portraits. You can also get character-exclusive portrait by upgrading their heart file level, but they are all really bad. Don't waste your resources on these. Now let's get to the interesting part. Which portrait should you give to your characters? As I said, you will constantly get better portraits by progressing in the game, so instead of making a list of portrait, I will tell you what abilities are the best for each role and a few endgame options that are actually worth upgrading. Attackers need either attack or damage increase, but crit-focused attacker like Yachiyo can also use crit rate or crit damage. The best one to invest in is the Savior's Apostle, since you can use it on all your damage dealers, but A Dream of a Little Mermaid is good if you have Yachiyo and want to get high scores and score attack. You might think that break effect would be good on breakers, but that's wrong. It doesn't increase the damage you deal to the break bar or the amount of break bonus your attacks give to the enemy. But what does it do then? You might have noticed that when you break an enemy, they take a small instance of break damage. Well, break effect increase this and only this. This is insignificant. Even with a lot of break effect, this is a negligible amount of damage. Instead of break effect, we want our breakers to focus on breaking the enemy as fast as possible, so we want either speed to give them more actions or MP recovery rate for more special attacks. If a portrait that increases break gauge depletion ever comes out, it would probably be better. New specs to a new perspective and It's Cake Party Time are good for MP recovery, while Proof of Friends again is the best speed portrait. Buffers are simple, they want either speed or MP recovery, but I think speed is slightly superior on most of them since you don't need their offensive buffs before the enemies are broken, so the speed helps them generate skill points for the rest of the team. The same portraits I advised for breakers are also good here. Debuffers are the most complicated ones. Debuff hit rate is decent but unnecessary. Missing debuffs is not a problem I had to deal with even in nightmare difficulty, but it's very likely that bosses with debuff resistance might appear in the future. Ailment hit rate is good on characters like Ren and Felicia who really want to inflict their ailments, but characters like Himika who has an ailment but doesn't really need to inflict it, or I am who doesn't even have an ailment don't need it. It's also good against enemies weak to ailments like the Mermaid Witch. If you don't need either of those, speed and MP recovery are good options. Attack or damage is an option if you're using your debuffer as a damage dealer, but it's not the best option since the only damage dealer among debuffers is Hannah, who is pretty bad. I also heard that some people use Ren as a damage dealer and she's apparently pretty decent, but that's not how I recommend using her. Captivated by Where You Stand and To Be an Ideal Magical Girl are good options, and you already which ones to use for speed and MP. Healers want HP recovery increase, but since the amount they heal is based of their HP, max HP portrait increase the healing output on top of making your healer more tanky. Ailment resistance is also usable against some enemies, so your healer can focus on removing ailments on the rest of your team instead of having to heal themselves, but it's not reliable enough in my opinion. These two portraits are the best ones for healers. Since the durability of their shield scales of defense, we want to increase it as much as possible for defenders. Ailment resistance can be decent against enemies with stun. If your defender is stunned, she won't be able to reapply her shield to protect your team. Best friend required is the best portrait for defenders, and Yakumo Detective Agency is the only portrait that increase ailment resistance. Now that we're done with portraits, let's talk about support Kiokus. Once you have cleared standard difficulty, you will be able to equip a character to another character as a support Kioku. Support Kiokus give a percentage of their stats to the character they're equipped to, so you will need to upgrade them to get the maximum amount of stats out of them. Increasing your Puella picture rank will increase the stats given by your supports. Every character has a support ability that can only be activated if the character they're equipped to fits a certain criteria. The character need to have the role or the element listed on the support ability. Even if you don't activate the support ability, the stat bonus will still apply, so using your most upgraded characters as support even if you can't activate their ability is good option if you can't upgrade another one. The support ability can be leveled up by upgrading the magic level of a character, but it requires prism and elemental orbs, some of the most scarce resources in the game since you can't farm them, you only get a few in event and PvP shops. Upgrading the characters you actually use in fights is your priority. Upgrading characters for the sole purpose of using them as support Kiokus is more of an endgame and late mid-game thing. I also don't recommend spending orbs just to raise the support ability of your characters even in endgame. Those are worth way too much for such a minor increase. I can't tell you precisely what characters have the best support abilities since it really depends on your account. You just need to use the same guidelines as for portraits. So attackers want attack, damage or crit. Breakers want break gauge depletion, speed or MP. Buffers want speed, or MP. Debuffers want ailment hit rate, debuff hit rate, speed or MP. Healers want HP or HP recovery. And defenders want defense. That's it for the video. Don't hesitate to leave a comment if you have any questions. Goodbye.